C&F Worldwide for nomads everywhere.
Hey, good morning, everybody. This is Rick Carter, C&F Worldwide, and today we're in Durham, North Carolina with Sebastian Wolfrum. Thanks for joining us today, Sebastian.
Thank you for coming out. Yeah.
And Sebastian is the owner of, I'm screwing up again, Epiphany Craft Malt.
That's right.
Right. And
Yes.
you guys have been here, what, 4 years now?
Yeah, this is the 4th year of operations. 7 years total with your planning and everything. So, yeah, it's been a long time coming.
The train comes by. God has a sense of humor, yes. Yeah. Anyway, we're going to continue on.
Yes, that's right.
So again, we're here with
right.
Sebastian Wolfrum at Epiphany Craft Malt in Durham, North Carolina. Sebastian was kind enough today to give us a very thorough tour of the malt operation,
Yes, we have.
the roasting, and the entire process here. Thanks for having us today.
Absolutely.
Because we've been into many breweries, and as you know very well, the craft beer business is booming nationwide. But it isn't often we get a chance to come talk to somebody who's growing the hops or crafting the malts for these people. So, and we want to go all the way back and learn a little bit about your background and your history. So you're originally from Germany.
That's right. Grew up outside of Munich in a small town.
Yeah. And you started out in this business as a brewer.
That's right. In 1997, I started right out of high school working at Ower Brewery outside of Munich. Mm-hmm. And learned it from the ground up.
Yeah.
Got my apprenticeship and then went to school and my certificate is actually in brewing and malting, and so that sort of already in a strange way led the path to why we're sitting here today at Epiphany Malt, right?
Yeah.
As a maltster, I sort of switched sides.
So you became a brewmaster in Germany.
That's right.
And you brewed beer over there for a number of years. And then how'd you make your way to the United States?
So I came here during my schooling years for 1 year and met my wife and decided to come and move here. And funny as the story is, at the time it already felt like this was 2005, right? It already felt like there was lots going on. We had 20-something breweries in North Carolina, and craft beer really seemed to be a cool thing. And so I was like, yeah, this is really interesting, because where I grew up, Ower and all of the other breweries, a lot of them have made the same beer for a long time, and it's all set in stone, and that has its benefits. But also, if you want to do creative things and kind of explore beer styles, I mean, they wouldn't ever think of making a Belgian beer, right? That's just this doesn't happen.
You go to Belgium for that, right?
Right, exactly. And so here you just think you can brew across the field of all the styles and really enjoy it. So I was like, I'll move here and start the second part of a brewing career. And little did we know that we're now 300 breweries in, right, in North Carolina.
300.
300. So it's been, the last 10, 15 years have been an incredible journey, not just for me, but for the state when it comes to beer.
So when you got here, did you go to brewing for somebody here locally right away?
Yeah, so I started brewing for Natty Greens in Greensboro, 2006, spring of 2006. And that's how my initial career started. And then I really got more involved in the state's affairs when I, together with Jamie at Footers, who started the North Carolina Craft Brewers Guild in 2008, and really sort of got the nucleus of a first state organization going. And then as the breweries grew, so grew the organization, I started looking into what my next step would be, and then. Really, what happened is 2012, there was a meeting gathered by NC State, and farmers were there, brewers, researchers, distillers, and I was there as one of the brewers. And the main question was, what can the state, the research and the farm side do to get more local ingredients into craft beers, right, as the breweries were growing. And there was a little bit of talk about hops and other various ingredients, adjuncts, spices, herbs, all these things. And but then it always came back to the majority of what's being used is obviously grain, but you can't just use raw grain from the field. A lot of people think you get barley or wheat, right, and then you mash in But if you would do that, you would end up with porridge, right? You would just make a breakfast all day.
And then you hop your porridge.
Right. You hop your porridge, and then you have this huge sludge, right? And so there's this missing major step that without the malting step, there's no brewing, right? You can't make beer. Oh, it's really hard. And so, I was like, well, I went to school for this, so I have enough training to be dangerous in some sense, and I still had a lot of the connections to Germany, and so I started calling around, asking for equipment, what's even out there at a small scale that we are, right, 10-ton batches, and then started sort of writing a business plan, trying to figure out how this could work both on the equipment end and on the farmer's end. I started looking for farmers actively to figure out who can grow winter barley. Right, it's a winter crop here, North Carolina. It's too warm in the summer to grow spring barley, or summer barley. So that needed to fall into place, and so it was a 3.5 year process to not only find the equipment but also find the money, and then be able to grow grain here and execute all that.
As we talked a little bit earlier, but as far as finding the money, so there's two components to this. There's the significant capital outlay, to
of
get
hardware,
the equipment,
right.
everything in here,
here,
and then there's the ongoing operations of the company. How did you handle both pieces of those financially?
So there were really two pieces. So all the equipment that we see here is it's not easy to get money for, but banks are willing to, if you have a good concept and they I guess believe in you and believe in the team you have assembled, that this is going to succeed or has a chance of succeeding. Financing equipment was something that they were very comfortable with, because it's collateralized, right? They can move it back out and make some money back and cut their losses. But for the operating cash, which is the riskier piece, right? I needed to find other sources, and so I have a handful of investors who I approached, and they said, yeah, we think you can do this, and we want to be part of this. And then there's a fund here in North Carolina that funds businesses that are tying into agriculture, and so they also gave so very risky capital for startup funds.
So did you find that your bankers were aware of the craft beer boom, and that the actual market for your the products that you wanted to create was growing rapidly? Did that play into their decision-making process?
So to some extent, yes, and I think a lot of comfort on their end also came with the fact that I've been brewing in the state for a good while and had been active, right? And so that whole side was also a plus for us, right? That I knew everybody who was brewing in the state and in the surrounding states, and so getting into the door with some of the early breweries that started buying right away was easier than if you don't know anybody and start from scratch, right?
So if you just showed up from out of town and say, hey, I'm going to open a malt
company,
they'd be
going to get going.
No, you're not.
Right. And who are you and what's going on and your story. So I was already known for who I was. And
so now the 4 years since you've opened the doors, you guys have grown very well, and about how many different breweries are buying your product on a regular basis? So
we have 36 or so regular customers who buy once or multiple times a month, and then I think the count's now 160 or so who've bought at least once over the time. So customers who've been purchasing, and we just signed a distribution arrangement with Country Malt, so you can not only buy from us, but you can also go straight through Country Malt and order our malt in. So that will help us. So we've been slowly growing our way out of North Carolina and have a couple in Virginia, South Carolina, and now it's basically from TEC to Florida over to Tennessee. That whole corridor is covered through their warehouse. So you're famous spreading. Yes, slowly but surely. So Epiphany Malt's becoming a household name among the brewers, I hope. So you seem to be a guy who stays busy, because you got here, you were brewing, you got involved with the Brewers Association, you go to these conferences, you see the need for a malt company. You had the epiphany, as you say. Yes, right.
And then you took the time and you built it out and you got it going now. But then you're also involved in other projects. And I'll start here in Durham, because I know Capital Broadcasting, and they got the stadium here in the Durham Bulls. Yeah. But you helped found the brewery that's at the stadium? So yeah, it's part of my transition. Opening a business is never easy, right? And so there's a lot of risks involved. And so I took on a project with Capital Broadcasting in Rocky Mount to start a brewery incubator. Right. As you know, seeing all these breweries, and as part of what we do here as well is half of the interaction with everybody is the education, right? So educating people is really, really important. And the project in Rocky Mount was
we're basically looking to combine all this. So there's a school component, there's brewery startups, there's making connections between them, but also to outside sources for funding or troubleshooting. Part of that role is me, and just kind of help people make better beer and grow a business in a smart way. And out of that, I helped them also start a brewery in the ballpark. So Boulder and Beer is started in the baseball stadium. Was the first brewery in a minor league ballpark in the country, and so makes beer for baseball at the ballpark.
At the Durham Bowl Stadium here, the brewery, they're actually brewing the beer at the stadium in the tap room.
So when there's not a game, you can't get in. Basically, you can only the brew ups you can, but for folks to visit, you have to basically buy a ticket to a game and get access.
So are they brewing beer for distribution out of there, or just for the games?
Just a little bit, yes. Yeah. So, but that's growing. So, the brewery itself has sold this year to a larger brewery in Raleigh, R&D Brewing, and they are basically are brewing in the ballpark, but then also brewing more and more for distribution and kind of attaching it to their brand and their distribution network. Yeah. It takes a lot of people to sell beer, right?
Yes, it does.
You have to do it efficiently, and so it made sense for them to have two brands side by side, and the Bulls, as a baseball team, is very famous, and then in town has a huge following. Yeah. There's lots of people going to the games, and it's just a fun place to be.
So then back over to Rocky Mount Mills, where you have the incubator, because this is a really interesting place. I've been there several times now. So when I first met you, we took a little quick tour there.
Yes.
So each of those brewers who has leased space there, they have what, a 10-barrel system?
10 barrels, yeah.
So they've got about 650 square feet, a 10-barrel system.
Yeah, 4 small fermenters, 2 large, so 4 10 to 20 barrels, and the idea is that you can make 800 to 1,000, somewhere in that range, barrels.
Right.
At a steady clip if you're really going, but the idea is to grow into it, right? You have a large enough system to kind of be at a commercial size and kind of get to know how you interact with the equipment, but also how to do initial beers and kind of find your flagship and find the story of what your brewery is like and who you are. And then because it's a lease model, so you're not owning the equipment, you're just leasing it and starting out with just operating costs, essentially. You can kind of get going, and the idea is over the next 2 to 3 years, you really build a backbone of a story and a pitch to a bank to then say, okay, this is who we are, this is the brand, this is how much we sell. Ideally already making money so that you have a positive cash flow to show the bank, and then you can say, hey, I want to go. Grow my brewery in Rocky Mount, or go to back to where I came from, essentially, right, to Ohio or Raleigh or wherever you start.
Hopfly, that guy's from Ohio.
That's right, and so you can go then various rounds and models and just figure out what you want to do and how you want to do it, without having the capital outlay of $500,000 or more to start your first place, right?
So each one of these brewers there has their 10-barrel system. Then you've got a shared canning line, kegging, storage.
That's right.
So they all have access to that without having to buy that for themselves either.
Yeah. So the whole point is that you can act as a big brewer, but really you're starting piece by piece, barrel by barrel, really. Yeah. But you get to learn it all, right? You get to learn how to run a small canning line. You get to learn how to you milk right, run your brew house, and then I think the key pieces with this co-location is that they learn quite a bit from each other, because they're obviously seeing everybody else do well or make mistakes along while they're doing well and making mistakes, and so it's a really neat learning environment. And there's this cluster of these breweries under one roof essentially, and then there's a bottle shop which is fun to watch for them. And then there's 2 breweries who are taproom breweries, so they're in individual houses. Right, so they brew inside that house, so that's Koi Pond and Tarboro Brewing, and that's another neat aspect of this, because it's it's like a typical taproom brewery. You brew in the back, you sell in the front.
Yeah. And then you've got a shared beer garden out there.
That's
and
right.
They have the advantage, and this, we'll talk about the complex for a second, because then Capital Broadcasting bought Rocky Mount Mills, which is now 200-year-old former cotton mill.
Yeah, that's right.
They have renovated it, retrofitted it into apartments, condominiums, offices, And like you said, there's two freestanding breweries and a
Yeah,
tap
there's a
room
couple
and
restaurants. Yeah.
So these guys are in a place where there are going to be people all the
More
time.
and more, exactly.
So they will be, and this facility isn't even finished yet. So all the
That's
people
right.
haven't moved into the apartments
Still
and the
under
condos.
construction,
So
yeah.
we're looking at a place where these people have gotten chance to start their breweries, where in the next, let's just say 18 to 24 months, there are going to be several thousand people a day moving about this campus. So they're going to have a market right there outside their
Yes.
front door.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of the appeal. And then you know you have your own story, but it's within the setting,
Yes.
which is a unique story. And you know, and a lot of people from the region come and visit because they know somebody who used to work at the mills during its cotton era, and so it's a really special.
And all the old
place.
mill housing, the houses they renovated that they lease out to, they all I understand they all have a keg system in them.
Yeah, so a lot of them have a little kegerator, and so the idea is that people who live there, you know, go get beer from the breweries and put them in their fridge and have them there. And
I was
just
actually
have
told
a
by, I
good
think it
time.
was it Scott? Is that his name, Scott?
Yeah,
but
Scott Roberts,
He
yeah.
said they actually, like, all they have to do is call the management office and tell them they want a barrel from a keg
so
rather,
there's
and then they'll deliver it to your house and clean the
there's
line.
a little back-end management of the supply, and you know, if you run out of CO2, they swap out your CO2 canister.
I'm
and all
moving
that.
in.
Yeah.
So the brew houses for the incubator there, you're the architect of all that, the
So
systems that are in there.
I lined it up, put it all together. We helped with permitting. When the initial plans were drawn, I figured out, you know, sizing of all the, you know, chiller and cooling and heating and you know, just how it's located. And we picked one room to be the shared room, right, where the keg machine is and the canning line, and that's also the one of the exits out of the building. So it's kind of a common area centered, so everybody gets to meet there if they want to and hang out. And the packaging side is really where everybody, because of the shared space, is kind of that's where they all sort of meet and coordinate. Otherwise, they run their own brewery like they would otherwise.
So then, in addition, as if that wasn't enough, I mean, we've got the two freestanding, you know, brewers in the
Right.
houses, and we've got the
Incubator. Yeah.
the incubator. We got the restaurant out there that also has tap room.
Yeah.
In addition to all that, and the incubator, Nash County Community College also has a teaching classroom there where they teach brewing, fermenting, distilling sciences, and I believe they
right.
have a degree program in that.
That's right.
How did that get started here?
So early on, as I got involved, the initial project had the idea of potentially doing a larger craft brewery that is a contract operation, and part of the contracting was this incubation piece and the school. And so right then, early on, we approached Nash Community College, since we're in Nash County in that part of Rocky Mount, to kind of help, as they do education all day long, to kind of help figure out how that would work and how you can embed this into the college, the community college system. And they already were working on a degree program. So Asheville, Rockingham, and then there's Wake and then Nashville, Nash County, who all have these brewing, distillation, fermentation programs, and some have an associate's degree, some just have it as a credit
A certificate
coursework,
program,
right.
yeah.
And so they all had gotten together already during that same time, so it made sense to combine all this under one roof. And so they set up as you said, a classroom, and it's really neat. It's a one-barrel system, and you got half-barrel fermenters and full-barrel fermenters. You can split a batch and do two different fermentation profiles if you like to, and they bottle it still, so they're doing distilling as well, and it kind of, you know, rounds off what's going on campus. And so we encourage the tenants to obviously figure out how to make good beer and learn that with all of the input, but also you can go through the community college side with Nash and learn about the business side and the culinary side. They have a huge culinary program and hospitality arm where you can really kind of, as you're starting a brewery, still sort out what the taproom operation would be like and what that could be. And so it's a really good overlap in skill sets.
So if I decided I wanted to, like, leave my current life behind and I wanted to become a brewer, I could move to Rocky Mountain Mills, get myself an apartment on the campus,
Right.
go to school at Nash County Community
College,
College, take my hands-on brewing courses right there on campus of Rocky Mount Mills. Maybe become fortunate enough to be chosen to
line up for one of the leases.
One of the leases, and start my brewery there, and then go on to fame and fortune somewhere and open permanently.
Exactly. Yeah, or you stick around. But
See,
yes,
I'm aware of other colleges and stuff that have programs, but this is the first place we've encountered, and we've been a lot of places, that all of this is on one campus in a nice, neat little package.
As far as we know, this is unique, especially with the setup. And there's now 6 breweries up and running. We're about to hopefully pull in a distillery, so we'd have an active commercial distillery on site. And then you can visit and see all this, but also you can, as you learn and go to school, you're not only learning out of the book, but you're actually doing it. Right?
Yeah. And in my understanding, and we're going to be doing a tour tomorrow of the facility with the management team over at Rocky Mount Mills, but they also have, there will be accommodations on site where you could actually come visit and stay overnight in houses there and visit the restaurants and the breweries and check it all out. And there's going to be an outfitter that does like kayak and
that's
canoe
right. There's
tours
an outdoor outfitter, and then there's a tiny house hotel, which is really neat. So there's 20 tiny homes, these tiny houses that you see on TV, right? These small ones, and you can book them as if they're a room. And you just, instead of getting a room in a building, you're getting a tiny house. So it's a really neat way to kind of spend the night and
so I could come for a weekend, stay in a tiny house, try the food at Tipsy Tomato, go to Cooley Pond in Tarboro, and go to try all the incubator beers, play wiffle ball at the new Bull Durham Wiffle Ball Stadium there, and take a kayak trip on the Tar River. I may never need to leave.
Right? No, it's a perfect place, and if you're on your way from north to south, as many people do, right? You come down to 95, it's a mile off the highway.
Let's tell people about this, because I'm a person who commutes up and down 95 on the East Coast on a very regular basis. And this complex is 5 minutes off the interstate.
Yeah, it's not far at all.
And I stumbled upon it, frankly, when we were looking for minority-owned or women-owned breweries to interview for some pieces we're trying to put together. And that's where I found Celeste and Brianna there at Spaceway in Harlem
Brewers House.
And I did the Google Map thing to see where they were. And I'm like, wait a minute, there's like 6 breweries. What? And at first I thought this must be like some little strip mall or something. And I zoomed in and I'm like, what is this place? So next thing you know, I'm on the phone with Josh Parvin at Cooley Pond going, he's like, come on down. And then we're here.
Yeah.
I mean, so I'm going to say, as somebody who's not from North Carolina, you're a pretty central figure here in the brewing industry at this point in time.
Well, I've been around long enough, right? And somehow got lucky to get involved in a lot of these projects, starting from the Guild to opening my own malt house, which connects me with a lot of people, and then working for Capital Broadcasting on these really cool projects with them to build up a new way of education and starting a brewing business.
So as somebody who got into the brewing business right out of high school, it must feel pretty good to look around and go, look at what we're doing here.
It's pretty fun, I have to say. Yeah.
Life's good.
Yeah, life is pretty good. So I've been brewing for now 22 years, right? So it's been a long time. And so it's kind of a neat web of things that are going on.
So I'm forced to say, what's next? You're involved in all these projects. Where does it go from here?
So this education piece is still, I think, something to get cracked because there's now various ways of doing it, but the transition from learning something and doing it in your own brewery is, I think, there's still this gap, and so we're trying to come up with better ways to train very specific things that then people can do at their own brewery right away. Right? There's a lot of things you can read in books or look at somebody's PowerPoint presentation, but the barrier of doing your own cell counts is still fairly high, unless you actually do it and then feel like, I've done this, I can just do this at my own brewery. Right?
Yeah, I'm fond of saying, like, you can read anything you want in a book, you can go online, you can read about all that kind of stuff, but anything that you're truly good at, you've screwed it up at least once.
Oh, yeah, no.
You've learned how not to do it by doing it hands-on, right?
Yeah. Right. On paper, everything looks good.
Oh, it's easy on paper, right? Because nothing goes wrong on paper, right? So the education piece is next. Any other plans beyond malting and working on these other projects? Or?
So the malting side, I feel we've finally, with our farmers and our customers, really, we've come to a good place where everybody understands what the rules of the game is with a small malt house, growing in growing barley in a region where traditionally barley is not grown, and then having winter barley in our case here, right, even more specific. And so that took a little bit, and it's starting to really get fun. So the roaster that you see behind us here, we still haven't really fired that up in any serious way, and so there's a lot of growth that I see on making really flavorful, fun malts.
Are you doing any kind of outreach or education with the farmers to explain to them exactly what the industry needs and what the tolerances are and the specs are on the grain?
So we talk with, we have 3 main farmers that we source from. We talk with them regularly. In fact, last week I was out in Hertford County towards the coast and met with the farmer. And we walked the fields and kind of looked at how the crop's coming, because in about a month it's harvest time, so it's not far off this year. And so and during that time, we always talk about what the brewers are looking for, how it works in my process, so they can understand the impact that what they're doing has on the final product, right? And actually it was fun this year. They actually get to know more and more of the customers because they follow Instagram feed, or they just, from me mentioning it, they know the brewers, and they sort of spend the winter going to Raleigh or Charlotte, and then just sorting out who's who and what's what, and what actually what the beers are like. And because they're pretty proud people, and they really, for them it's as much fun as it is for me to see what the brewers do with the piece that you've added to the puzzle.
So what kind of economic impact would you say that the beer industry in North Carolina has had on the local farms?
So for us, directly on grain purchases, we are over $300,000 just on raw sourcing that stays in that feeds a farmer or these multiple farmers, provides them a second or third version of an income, because they have their cash crop over the summers.
Right.
Might be tobacco or soybeans or corn,
Right.
and then in the winter they really only have milling grade wheat as the only real high dollar. Otherwise, it's all cover crops, right? Then there's very little, and so the malting barley as a specialty crop also gives them another. Instead of quality wheat, you can make quality barley, and I buy it at a premium for malting. So that's a whole new crop that didn't exist, and there's very little that exists in that winter cycle anyway that makes them real money, short of breaking even or protecting the land.
So now, for years and years in the United States, that you heard about the decline of the family farm, and what we're starting to see is that the beer industry is allowing some of these small farmers to stay in business. Like someone we've talked about have actually opened their own farmhouse breweries on their property.
Sure.
Other ones are growing the barley
Yeah.
and the winter wheat and that kind of stuff. So the economic impact of this craft beer industry is just becoming magnified.
In a sort of interesting way, right? Even though the farmers are somewhat detached, just seeing a future in growing the grain that then makes beer. For the 2 farmers, the main 2 they work with, Prairie Farms and then Whitehead Seed Farm, this is really a motivational driver, even though it's not the majority of their income stream, because they're growing all these other grains, and the main money comes from the crops over the summer. But it just keeps them motivated, and for the next generation, it's like, there's a new crop that will develop, and we can grow with it, and beer is like it builds communities in towns, right? You open a brewery and people come together, and it kind of restarts a whole neighborhood. And the same is this for the farmers. It helps rekindle sort of the excitement about what they're growing actually goes into something that they understand, right? Otherwise, all this feed grain or this large commodity crops they grow, they go on a truck and they disappear, and you never know what happens.
I'm glad you made the comment about the towns and stuff, because we're seeing that everywhere we go. The local craft breweries have absolutely reinvigorated Main Street in some small towns.
Yeah.
They've been the seed that started the regrowth of blighted neighborhoods in cities.
Yep.
And it's just continuing to grow out from there. So Sebastian Wolfrum, malter, brewer, educator, brewery incubator developer, we thank you for your time and for the tour, and
pleasure.
Keep up the good work, man. It's been a pleasure.
We'll do it. Absolutely. Thanks.
CNF Worldwide for nomads everywhere.
This broadcast was produced by CNF Limited for Nomads Everywhere. The contents of this broadcast are the property of CNF Limited. All rights are reserved. For more information about CNF publications, contact us at 305-707-4024. Find us on the web at cnfltd.com.